What's going on, New York Yankee fans? Welcome back to another video. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream publicly drops. Almost 50% of the viewers that view the videos on this channel are subscribed. That is a big milestone. In terms of the analytics, we are 14 subscribers away from 300, which is also another big milestone. So please keep contributing. Thank you guys so much. And we give you guys the content and more people to engage with by growing the channel. So in this video, I'm going to get right to it. A lot of media pundits, and I'm getting really sick and tired of this, a lot of media pundits within the New York media, or as they say, the tough New York media, a lot of them are circling the water, or should I say stepping in the water. They're putting their foot in the water and not stepping in. They're not going in. They're not putting their head under. And you're probably saying to yourself, Alex, what the hell are you talking about? A lot of pundits, and we'll mention them in this video, of course, are going out there and saying multiple things, and they don't have all bad points. They're not totally wrong, but they're not blaming everyone that is in association with the way this organization has been built and the way it's functioning. So you have guys like, oh, this is Cashman's fault. It's not Boone. Oh, it's Boone's fault. It's not Cashman. I don't get the logic. I don't. Everybody has some sort of blame, but we'll get to it. I'm going to bring up points about Boone, Cashman, Steinbrenner, the talk shows, and the pundits. So let's get into it. I'm going to read a couple of quotes from pundits out there like Michael Kay, Evan Roberts, Craig Carton, and Jake Asman. Jake Asman is really the cast out, or I should say the outcast of these guys because he has a show in Houston, whatever, but he's probably the one that I most agree with on this list. So let's get into it. So if you want to provide context, if you're saying, oh, Alex, you're saying stuff that's out of context, provide the context in the comments. I'm willing for a debate because, once again, like I mentioned a couple of seconds ago, I'm really getting sick and tired of this crap and the way this whole situation is being portrayed to us. So with that being said, let's go into it. I have Michael Kay, Evan Roberts, Craig Carton, and then Jake Asman, as I mentioned earlier. So this one is a long one from Michael Kay. He said it on his TV show, his talk show, on ESPN and Yes Network. Do they sacrifice Boone to the baseball fan gods to give them something? If they did that, I think it would be disingenuous. He is doing the bidding of the front office. There are scripts that are written that, of course, he can deviate from somewhat, but it's essentially from up top the way this game is played by the Yankees. So if they get rid of Boone, and that's what Yankee fans seem to want when they call into my show, if you get Boone 2.0, what difference does it make? Boone's a great guy. He represents the organization well. I think if they go with something different, like a Bruce Bochy or a Mike Scioscia or a Buck Showalter, then I think that indicates seismic change. Because there's no way any of those three guys take that job and are still allowing the front office to be as influential on their decisions. I think they want information, those guys, but they're going to make the final decision. He also says, so I think that's what they have to decide. It's not Brian Cashman that's going to decide it. It's going to be Hal Steinbrenner and his family. Is it time to change? They've won one title in 20 years. So I'm not quite sure what's going down because I think Brian Cashman thinks that Aaron Boone does a great job. And for what Brian Cashman wants in a manager, Aaron is doing exactly what he's supposed to do. So maybe the information that Aaron is getting isn't as good. That's something to consider. Now, let's go to Evan Roberts, who's a Mets fan. I'm putting that in context, of course, because he's speaking about the Yankees. Like I would say if Don LaGreca was talking or someone else was talking that's not a Yankees fan, that does not know the ins and outs of the Yankees like a Yankees fan would. I'm not trying to discredit him, but I'm going to read what he said. It's not Boone's fault. It's the players and the team wasn't simply good enough. The managerial discussion is simply overrated, and it's about improving the roster. Craig Carton. It's not on Brian Cashman. He's not responsible for the future of the Yankees in the last 12 years. It's Hal Steinbrenner. Hal Steinbrenner is the only figure that can speak to the Yankee fans and make them feel good. He'd have to say there is no price limit on free agency. And another point to be brought up, I don't know if he said this or not, couldn't you still sign and develop quality players under the luxury tax? Now, Jake Asman says this. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if Aaron Boone is fired, but the problem with the Yankees extends beyond him. The problem with the Yankees is that they're too arrogant. They think they've accomplished a lot, but realistically have regressed since 2017. They went to the ALCS with Joe Girardi and a team that had no business being there. Boone's gap quote essentially is a microcosm of a bigger organizational arrogance. They are a fourth-place team if they run it back next year. Wholesale changes. If they don't renew his contract in 20 days, I'm not going to sit here and say it's the wrong move. This team has hit his ceiling. So let's talk about it. Yankee fans, if you want to hold this organization accountable and you want to make the right notes, you want to say, oh, well, this is wrong, this is not wrong, whatever, you have to blame everybody. You have to blame everybody. You can't be picking and choosing. You could pick and choose for different reasons, like Brian Cashman bringing in guys like Joey Gallo, Andrew Heaney, who didn't necessarily succeed, and then it goes from there. But here's my problem. Here's my freaking problem with some of these pundits, is that they're either too scared to say, and if they're too scared to say what they actually think, and I don't think that's Evan Roberts and Craig Carton. I think it's more of the Michael Kay show, my personal opinion. Obviously, you guys can differ. But if you're going to say and try to speak for the front office, and if you're also going to try to say, oh, well, they did this, and if you're afraid to give your viewpoint, then why have a fucking show? Then why have a show? There's no point in you having a show when all you're going to talk is, oh, the front office is probably indicating this. There's no point. Earlier this week, Pete Simonetti of NYY News got into it with Ryan Rucco on Twitter because he criticized Nevin, but also said he was a nice guy, which doesn't make any sense. I'm tired of these pundits coming out here while they try to criticize, Nevin and Boone and all these guys. Michael Kay even says it in this quote. He says that Boone is a great guy and he represents the organization very well. Who the hell cares? That statement isn't even 100% correct because Boone's a great guy. Okay, he could be a nice guy. Girardi necessarily wasn't the nicest guy. But does that matter? They're not working for freaking customer service of Liberty Mutual or some of these other companies. They're working as a manager of a Major League Baseball team, of a team that brings in millions and billions of dollars every year. So you know what? Cut the shit, because that doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter if they're a nice guy. And I understand to the front office it does, but to us fans, we don't care. We do not care if Brian Cashman, Aaron Boone, this, that, and the other guy is a nice guy. I don't care. If they're good at their job, they're good at their job. Unless they're taking a customer service role, unless they're getting a receptionist role at a dentist's office, I could give a flying rat's ass if they're a nice guy. I don't care. Ryan Rucco said that about Phil Nevin. He's a nice guy. I don't care. He literally went the other day, whatever it was, started saying, and he didn't even say he was wrong. He said, oh yeah, I felt like I made the right move. I'm putting this and I'm paraphrasing it. I made the right move. It was just a good baseball play. Are you blind? Are you mad? Own up to it and actually have a pair of balls. It's so disgusting. And Jake Asman keeps talking about arrogance in the quote that I read. He's damn right. He's spot on. Arrogance. But let's talk about Aaron Boone. Evan Roberts says it's not Boone's fault, it's the players and the team wasn't simply good enough, blah, 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 blah. A lot of the pundits out there and a lot of the people out there, pundits, content creators, whatever, during that 13-game winning streak the New York Yankees had in August, everyone's saying, oh, you got to give Boone some credit. You got to give Boone some credit, blah, 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 blah. No. You stick to your narrative and you stay transparent. You don't just go, oh, flip-flop, flip-flop, flip-flop. You're not a politician. Or you should honestly portray yourself as if you don't want to be portrayed as a politician. If it's the player's fault that this team isn't winning, then it's the players that make the winning streaks happen. If we're going to say that, then I might as well come out and say, Okay, Aaron Boone is literally Jason Garrett when he was in Dallas. Because Jason Garrett was not good as a head coach. He got winning seasons, but he had loads of talent in Dallas. They've been flip-flopping as the NFC East winners and the wild card, whatever. This is not a football subject. But I'm sick and tired. Oh, well, this is. I'm sick and tired of these people flip-flopping, and I'm sick and tired of there not being enough accountability in the New York market. And it's not even just the people who are having radio shows. It's the people out there that are asking these types of questions. The Lindsay Adlers of the world. The Brendan Cootie. Oh, my God, Garrett Cole was being. Shut up. Have you never, ever seen what happens in the Bleacher Creature section? Bradley Zimmer, Ryan O'Hearn? I'm not saying, oh, it should happen, it should not happen. I'm taking a very Switzerland type of standpoint just so I could prove a point. But hello, have you never spent a day or have you never ever seen what they do in the Bleacher Creatures section? They talk about their moms. They talk about this stuff. I don't care personally. I'm not a soft person. But we're going to focus on that. That's the narrative, right? That Boston fans, that, he wrote an article about Yankee fans being mean to Altuve, saying he sucks right to his face. That's baseball. That's life. You want to write an article about that? Go ahead and waste your goddamn time. Anyone who reads that shit, I don't know even what you're thinking. But that should be the focus of the offseason, right? How Boston fans were intimidating Garrett Cole with a Kermit puppet. That should be the focus and not Aaron Boone. And then Lindsay Adler, everybody's favorite beat writer. Every single question is so non-related to baseball, it's not even funny. Hey, Aaron, do you have a vegetarian diet? Hey, Aaron, what'd you eat for breakfast? Hey, Aaron, what did your kid get on his math homework? Shut up. Ask baseball questions. Ask questions that are actually relative to the game. Brian Hoke's been the only one. He's had, I think, one question. Is your team getting used to losing? And Aaron Boone responded. So don't you think it should work? These beat writers are as inconsistent as Jason Garrett and his offensive playbook. But back to the pundits. The Ryan Ruccos and the Michael K's. We'll talk about them before we go to Carton and Roberts because I think they're just off. I think they're not getting the full perspective, to be honest with you. I don't think they're blaming everybody. In terms of Carton and Roberts, I'm not going to say the same thing for Kay and Rucco, though. They're either ignorant, they're either saying, oh, well, Boone's my friend, so I'm going to say, oh, he's a nice guy and rip him at the same time. No. If a manager did that, if a boss did that, if a CEO did that, they would look like, oh, you have no balls. So you rip him or you don't. If you say he's a nice guy, your credibility should be gone. I don't care. I could say, oh, Sean knows absolute dog shit about lacrosse. I didn't say he was a nice guy, so I'm actually saying that. If I was a lacrosse fan, I'm not a lacrosse fan. If I was a lacrosse fan and I wanted to talk lacrosse on the Boys in Big Apple podcast, and then Sean doesn't know what I'm talking about, I could say he doesn't know absolute shit about lacrosse and he needs to do more research. If I could say, oh, Luca does not know enough about soccer, and I wanted to talk soccer because I'm a soccer fan, I could say, oh, Luca doesn't do enough research. He doesn't know the topic. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I would say that, and that's criticism. That's not, oh, he's a nice guy, but this. Shut it. If you're going to say he's a nice guy, if you're going to try to make loopholes, then don't have a show at all. And I might regret this in 30 years. I might regret it in 12 years. I don't know if I will ever regret it. But if I had a show on Yes where I was limited to what I was saying because I have a personal relationship or I have, personal connections in the Yes Network, I would not have a show. I would have a show maybe talking about the Giants and the Jets and the Rangers and the Knicks and the Nets and all these other teams other than the Yankees. Because I know damn well that if I had one show or one episode of a show where I just talked about the Yankees and ranted on them and I knew I was going to get in trouble, I would have gotten fired. And I knew, or I would have known in that situation, oh crap, I made a mistake. So I would have set a limit to myself and said, okay, I can't talk Yankees because if I say the truth, my producers and my directors are going to go ahead and rip me two new assholes. So you know what? Stop with this nice guy crap. It does not matter. I get it. We live in a soft society today where everybody's taking offense to everything, but stop. If you have a personal connection with somebody, who cares? Who cares? You're ripping them. You have to do your job. You have to do your job, and people are going to just lose you. You're going to lose credibility by saying, oh, he's a nice guy. Once again, who cares? Who the hell cares? So you know what? For Yankee fans listening to these two guys, and sure, they may be good at broadcasting. Ryan Ruocco may be good at being in the studio and calling Nets games and doing whatever. But in terms of the actual journalism aspect, they're shaded by what Yes Network, or what we believe to be what Yes Network is telling them, don't do this, don't do that, because it hurts the way we look. And just a great lie, just a fabulous lie by Michael Kay in this one quote I'm reading, a part of the one I read earlier. Boone's a great guy. He represents the organization very well. No, he does not. If he represented the organization very well, he would be giving firm answers. He would be giving concrete answers, because the fan base would not be overreacting or just reacting and raging at all if Boone gave complete answers, if he actually gave good answers. If he gave good answers, we would have no reaction. We would say, okay, we're getting tired of this. Something needs to happen. And this will probably help me transition into Evan Roberts and Craig Carton quotes. Let's talk about the Boone first before we get to Steinbrenner and Cashman. Once again, not all points are bad, but there's a lot to be desired. There's a lot to be left out here. Evan Roberts says it's not Boone's fault. It's the players and the team wasn't simply good enough. The managerial discussion is simply overrated, and it's about proving the roster. No, it's not all the way that. Sure, you could make some changes. You could trade Glaber. You could actually get a starting outfielder. I don't know. Make the changes you want. But let's compare this. Let's take a virtual trip to Flushing, Queens for a second. If you, as in Evan Roberts, if he supported that Luis Rojas was gone, that he should support Aaron Boone being gone. And I understand. The Mets barely reach 500 every single season. Unfortunately, that's the standard, that's the narrative they are stuck to until they actually start winning games again and actually start being in playoff races. The Yankee standard, we have 27 championships. I'm not going to go around and debate saying, oh, we have 27 rings. No, absolutely not. But him as somebody who's in the New York media should look at the standards. Aaron Boone, his work as manager and even this organization from top to bottom, what standard has been set the last couple of years? This team has not made it to the World Series since 2009. They haven't won a chip since 2009. Since we got Garrett Cole, we have not been able to get past or thoroughly into the ALDS. We won, one or two games last year in 2020? Well, I got to stay last year as 2021. But in 2020, we won, 1-2 games? With Garrett Cole? We couldn't build around him in the rotation. We couldn't do this, that, and the other thing. And how about this? This is a point brought up by mostly every Yankee fan. Boone and Cashman and whoever, they hired the coaching staff. They hired Phil Nevin as the third base coach. He's been horrible this year. He's had 22 or 21 runners thrown out at the plate. One of them was Carlos Mendoza. That's what I remember. But he's had 22 to 23 guys thrown out at home plate. Sure, you could use some context. You go watch every one of the 162 games. You could use context, whatever. But it's still a lot. That's probably one of the worst in the MLB. And going back to my point earlier, actually, you could still say this season because the Dodgers are playing, the Giants are playing, there's a lot of other teams still playing. Unlike the Yankees, of course. But in terms of Boone, Michael Kay said in his quote, oh, well, Boone can make some changes, but it's up to the front office. If Boone was an actual man, if he actually had some sort of standard, if he had self-esteem, if he had self-consciousness, he would have said, I'm taking all the heat. Well, the front office should as well. He would actually make good answers to questions at press conferences. he would stand up and grow a pair and say to Brian Cashman, I don't want to do this anymore. And if you're going to keep doing it, and if I can't make my own decisions as manager, I will be happy to step down. I don't want to hear 5 to 10 years from now, well, this is the way the Yankees did things and I just had to abide by it. Because this man has been put into a family. He was birthed into a family full of baseball, full of just famousness. That's not even probably a word, but who cares? You had Brett Boone, you had Bob Boone, you had the great-grandfather, one of the Boones. There was even a guy who was like an ancient settler back in like the 1800s or whatever that's a part of his family. Why would you want to wreck your last name and yourself with the fact, oh, Aaron Boone's a shitty manager? So for people that are saying, oh, well, Cashman and Steinbrenner control it, does Boone not have a set of balls? Is he a robot? Because I don't think he is. The way he talks, he could be a robot. But from the Sunday Night Baseball broadcast and all this other stuff, he's not a robot. He's a player. He's played baseball, so he must have some knowledge. So I don't understand that. And not just, oh, the way I'm doing things, the way the Yankees are doing things, the way, this, that, and the other thing. The way coaching as well, because if you guys watch one of the Boys in Big Apple episodes, Pete Simone basically explained, oh, it's basically a therapy session. It's not actual coaching. It's you can do it. You can be the best third baseman you can be. So once again, Boone, as of right now, may not have all of the cards in his hand, but he could step up and say, I'm tired of this, and I don't want to be the scapegoat anymore. And if you guys want to keep doing what you're doing, you think this is getting you success, fine. I'll just step down and I'll save myself from humiliation. So that's the quote I have. So that's about Evan Roberts, Michael Kay, and Ryan Ruocco. In terms of Craig Carton, he says it's not on Brian Cashman. He's not responsible for the future of the New York Yankees in the last 12 years. It's Hal Steinbrenner. I agree somewhat with that quote, but it's on Cashman as well. Because Cashman, though the Yankees were not given a fair shot with, oh, you can't go over the luxury tax in free agency of 2020, 2021, though Hal was penny pinching, why are we so pent up about, oh, we got to go in free agency and spend it on this guy and that guy? Why are Yankee fans so pent up about that? Because they cannot develop anybody. That's Cashman's fault. That's the player development. And Cashman's fault as well, because he's depending on guys like Mike Ford, Mike Talkman, Aaron Hicks, some of these other guys. And we could go a laundry list back of some of the bad contracts he signed players to, Hicks being one of them. We'll see how Sevy plays out. But it is on Cashman. In my opinion, the Yankees need to move on. I don't care if he's got 5 years or 1 year left on his contract. Clean house. You bring somebody in who has a new mentality, who knows how to spend the money, and who knows how to get some prospects in here, and who knows how to build a farm system. Remember the farm system that the Yankees had in 2016 and 2017 because they traded for some prospects? Where's that? They're probably at the bottom of the pit in the MLB in terms of farm systems. And how does that affect free agency, you ask? I just mentioned it. Because if you don't develop players, you got to go out in free agency and spend $300 million on several different free agents. It's the same way in football. And for my Michael Kay listeners out there, this ain't going to be a bad thing. But if you guys remember the Ed Kranepool rant, if you guys remember that rant, what did he talk about? He talked about how there was no franchise players, that David Wright and Ed Kranepool were literally the only franchise players that Mets fans know. There's no Judge, there's no Andujar, there's no Gleyber Torres, there's no group of guys like that on the Mets, or at least at the time. This was 2017, 2018, whatever. And he said it. He said, this is not how you do things anymore in modern sports, let alone baseball. You don't go out in free agency and spend this much money. Sure, you fill some holes, but most of the job, or at least some of the job, has to be done by player development. There's only about 5 to 6 guys on the current roster for the New York Yankees that have been developed by this system. And some of those guys aren't even good. Gary Sanchez being one of them. Kyle Gashoka, he's a backup catcher. So we could have 700 different conversations about that. I do agree with the Howe quote, though. He's run this team down ever since the 2009 championship. We have not made it back to the World Series, and they chose, as a philosophy, as to be more analytically driven and to drop their testicles, to fire Joe Girardi, to not bring him back and bring in a puppet who has no backbone, and say, okay, well, we're going to do this, this, and this. Where's that gotten you? As Jake Asman said, since 2017, this team has been nothing. It's been regressing. So, final thoughts. I know this has probably been like a 20-minute video of some sorts, but with that being said, if you're going to sit there and defend the Yankees, and you're going to sit there and be controlled by the Yes Network, don't have a show. Talk about the Giants, talk about the Jets, talk about the Nets. Well, that's even debatable because they're on Yes. Talk about the Knicks, talk about the Rangers, talk about the Islanders, talk about those teams. So we don't have to sit through your bullshit opinion. And if it is your real opinion, you deserve to take heat for that. Because you're defending a guy, and this is for both Ruocco and Kay, who you have a personal relationship with, and he's a nice guy. Nice guys finish last. Unless you're a receptionist, unless you're a freaking, let's say, I brought it up earlier, customer service agent. Nice guys finish last. In terms of just total accountability with the way the New York media and the radio hosts have been handling this, you blame everybody. You blame Boone for sitting there and taking it. You blame Cashman for not building a team that has been really achieving what it's supposed to. This team has been underachieving for the last couple of years, except 2019, but once again, every fan has their own standard. And then Hal Steinbrenner for contributing and for owning this garbage and having Yankee fans pay $635 to sit behind home plate and charging them $7 for a soda and $20 for a chicken bucket where they give you 3 pieces of chicken. It's a shame. It's a money game. It's a business. I'm not going to sit here and say that that's going to have any impact, that us fans outraging is going to have any impact, because the Yankees are so out of touch with their fans. And even if modern day baseball, modern day sports had a huge protest of where, okay, I'm going to strike against the Yankees, I'm not going to go to the stadium. Even if that happened, they would not change anything because they're so naive, they're so stuck in their own narrative and their own mindset. But with that being said, guys, if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when live stream video drops. Appreciate you all coming back. Please subscribe, help out the algorithm. Boys Big Apple, 8:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Big Blue in the Bronx podcast episodes, mainly Giants for now. I'll try to get more Yankees in. I'm waiting on another announcement, but for right now, Big Blue in the Bronx for Giants episodes, it's Tuesdays and Saturdays. Weird schedule, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when the podcast episodes premiere on YouTube, but they're usually out before 12:30 on different podcast platforms. Peace out, guys. See you later. Stay cool, and have a good day.